This is Safety Bri, your number one safety geek. Why do we have the behaviors that we do? Superheroes in the workplace, right? All of those things that go into making you an effective safety manager. I love what we do. Motivation, learning, teaching, training, teamwork. I geek out over that just as much as I do safety. Hello, all my safety friends. How are you doing? Welcome to episode 9 of the Safety Geek podcast. This is Bri, your number one safety geek, and I hope that you're having a great day. I will tell you, I just finished reading Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt. I know the book came out a few years ago, but I have a book list that's as long as my arm, but I just finished reading it. It is an amazing book. I will put a link in the show notes in case you're interested in reading it as well. I don't know if you know this about me, but I am like a time management junkie. You give me productivity books and stuff like that, and I am just such a happy camper. So a lot of the stuff in this book, I kind of knew already, but it was neat to see how to break it down. And every time I read one of these books, I think about you guys. And I think, how can we take these concepts and apply it to safety managers? How can safety managers use this information? So the thing about Free to Focus is it breaks down your tasks that you have to do and makes you look at them as like, are you the right person to be doing it? You know, is it in your... He doesn't use the term zone of genius. I can't remember what he uses, but like, is it really in your wheelhouse type of thing, right? And then if it's not, how to either delegate it or eliminate it. So a lot of times what I find with safety managers is stuff is just thrown at us and we don't have a choice. We have to do it, right? And they even address that in the book too. But I love the idea of looking at your to-do list and saying, do I really need to do this? Who would notice if it didn't get done? And I find a lot of times when a lot of the tasks that we do, like we'll run reports and stuff like that, but they're never put into use, right? So it allows you to kind of look at the things you do and go, can I free up some more time to focus on what I do best, right? Which should be stopping accidents from happening in the first place. It's a really good book. I think it's about 250 pages, something like that. So it's a pretty quick read. I was actually thinking, I've moved on to the book, The One Thing. I can't remember who wrote that one. Sorry, it's not right in front of me. But I've moved on to that book. But I kept thinking, maybe we should start like a book club. What books everybody is reading, and then we can have discussions about how you can take the concepts in that book and apply it to safety manager life. So that's an idea that I'm toying around because I always have a book on my nightstand. Actually, I keep mine on my couch because I read every morning, part of my morning ritual. And then at night, I try to read fiction. I love nonfiction better than fiction, but you can get a lot out of fiction too, especially if it's a literary fiction. So I do try to do that at night. But I am toying around with that idea. So if you're interested, make sure that you comment in the show notes or reach out in the Facebook group and let me know that that would be something you would be interested in as well. And then I can put that together and we can have a virtual book club where we actually talk about, business books or safety books or productivity books, stuff like that, things that will make you better at doing your job. That's why I enjoy them. They make me better at doing my job. All right, so that's my book rant for today. Let's move on to our topic. Today, what I wanted to talk about was safety culture. And I want to give you 10 quick tips that you can put in place pretty easily to build safety culture at your facility. Now, safety culture, the way I define it is the way that we do business, right? That working safely is just the way that we do business. It's just how we do things. But I was thinking about this morning actually as well, was that a lot of people don't necessarily understand safety culture. And what I hear a lot of people say that their problem areas is getting management, commitment, and support. And actually, that's safety culture. So, because once you have management commitment and support, getting your employees on board is easy peasy. When your problem area is management commitment and support, that is a culture problem. So anytime you see any articles about safety culture or anything that would help you build safety culture, just know it's going to help you with that problem. And don't think that because you have a management problem that they're not in the right mindset or they don't have the right culture, that it can't be changed. And there are lots of things that you can do as a safety manager to change their mind. So keep listening. That's what we're going to be talking about. Keep reading the blog. That's my jam. So I love talking management commitment and I love talking safety culture. But let's get through my list of 10 quick and easy ways that you can change your safety culture. So number 1 is set expectations to work safely on day 1. So a lot of people just assume that when someone is hired, they know that we don't want them to get hurt. And that we put rules in front of them. And I get a kick out of this too. A lot of times in that gigantic new hire packet where they're signing their life away 50 times, one of the papers in there are the safety rules. And they're like, well, they signed that paper, the safety rules, so they already know that we expect them to work safely. And that is not true. You have to set that expectation for them. And actually, it shouldn't come from you. It's more powerful when it comes from their frontline supervisor. But if you don't set those expectations, they're going to set their own expectations. And you don't want them to, because they will always pick productivity over safety. You know, how many people will still use a power tool in their garage even though they don't have safety glasses, right? And we don't want them doing that in the workplace. We want it to be like, no, you don't use it at all unless you've got the proper PPE. You have to set those expectations yourself. So the way that you can do that, and I would say like on day 1, that you just have a nice face-to-face conversation with that new employee. It's like, I don't know where you've worked before, but here at our company, we value safety. And it's the way that we do business. So I want to make sure that you understand that we truly expect you to follow the safety rules above all else. And you don't have to throw consequences at them or anything like that. You just have to have this heartfelt conversation and get them to understand it. And usually at that point, I love to have them sign a commitment statement as well, where they understand that you're signing off and you're committing to working safely. And I love to throw in my commitment statement that they're going to watch out for their coworkers too. So that's something else that you can do to get them to understand that safety is expected at your facility. All right, number 2, safety is not a separate entity. It is actually entwined in everything that you do. So you should not have SOPs for safety, safe work practices, or anything like that, and then have a whole separate SOP for operations and a whole separate SOP for quality or food safety if you're food processing. Everything should be entwined together. So that goes back to this is the way we do business. The minute that you separate them, then you're saying that one part has a different weight than another part. So safety should just be entwined in everything that you do. So if you have the 2 separate lists, combine them into one. It actually makes everybody's job easier, so you're not having to look at different policies or procedures. They're just all together as one. That is number 2. Number 3, safety is everyone's responsibility. Now, we know this and we say this message all the time, but that message actually has to come from the top. So the next time that you have a town hall meeting or just a general company meeting where your top people are talking to the employees, you get them to say that. You get them to say that safety is everybody's responsibility. And you get them to start looking out for each other. And you get commitment from everyone That's why I love commitment statements. I also love it when you take that commitment and you put it on a banner and then everybody signs the banner. That's always so much fun. Everybody signs the banner and then you post the banner up and it's got everybody's signatures. I've seen another thing where with the commitment statements, people put pictures of the person and attach their signed commitment to the picture as well and posted it up in their break room. That's really great, especially if you only have a few employees. Like where I saw that, I believe they only had 35 employees. So I thought that was amazing. I did it at my facility with, how many employees did we have at the time? I think 220. And I basically papered the top of the break room with commitment statements. That way they were always up there and then we could just change them out. It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. All right, so safety is everyone's responsibility, and that message needs to come from the top. Number 4, safety is discussed before every task. Now, if it's a routine task, I don't expect you to talk about safety every single time. You know, let's say that you're in a warehouse facility and you do order picking every day, you're not going to talk about safety, how to safely do the order picking every single day. But that entire SOP should be reviewed regularly. So what I like to do is break it up into little bite-sized chunks and then every day talk about one item that's on that SOP. So I'm not reviewing the whole thing. But if you have a new or a non-routine task, safety needs to be talked about before the task starts. And if you go back to number 2, where safety was entwined in the SOP with everything else. So when you're talking about, hey, I have you doing this new task that you've never done before, or it's a task that we only do once a month, let's review it. As part of the review, usually I use a JHA because JHAs have the operation steps as well. But everything is entwined, so you're talking about the whole thing. And so safety is included in that. So as you're teaching the person or reviewing with the person about that task, you're also reviewing safety. So safety is discussed before every new or non-routine task. And then you have a process in place for reviewing regular tasks, things that they do every day. That is number 4. All right, let's move on to number 5. There are multiple ways to report safety concerns. So within your facility, there should be more than one way that somebody can report a safety concern. And that does not mean, I can either report it to the safety manager, or I can report it to my supervisor. We need different formats, guys. So you're thinking, I see an issue, I see something I don't like, how can I report it? I can report it to a member of management. I can write it in the suggestion box. I saw one facility where they had a board and they could just write it on this whiteboard. Or you can have an anonymous way. It's very important that you have an anonymous component to the reporting. So when I worked for a large corporation, they actually had an ethics hotline that people could report stuff into. We also set up a hotline where they could leave a voicemail, and then that voicemail went directly to me to report safety hazards, and they didn't have to give their name in it. But you want an anonymous component, and you want some way of tracking all of these hazards as well. But there has to be multiple ways, because if your only way of reporting hazards is you tell your immediate supervisor, they might not feel comfortable telling their immediate supervisor. So then they would leave the hazard unreported. And I had that happen many, many years ago. Everybody knew about this hazard, where what happened was the interlock was broken and the machine would continue to run even when you opened up the machine guard. And everybody knew about it. And it got missed on inspections because it was a small guard on a very small machine about the size of a toaster. And the reason they didn't report it is basically because the maintenance department never listened to them anyway and wasn't responsive. And the only way to report it was to physically tell maintenance. And when they had told them, they forgot about it and never fixed it. So they just gave up reporting it. And then sure enough, someone's fingers got caught in the machine because the guard wasn't working correctly. And she didn't lose her fingers, luckily, but they were damaged really bad. And the little toaster machine actually ended up going to the hospital with her because every time we tried to remove her hand, it was pretty bloody. So the EMTs were like, just wrap that baby up. It's the size of a toaster. We'll take it to the hospital with us. So it was kind of funny when the firemen showed back up with the toaster and returned it to us. It wasn't a toaster, but it was the size of a toaster. But the machine itself was pretty dangerous because it was in a food processing. So it was meant to chop up meat and bone, which is what our fingers are. So anyway, getting back to number 5, which you have to have multiple ways of reporting concerns. The reasons why you have to have that is they have to have multiple ways of getting to, getting it documented and where they feel comfortable and making sure that you're responsive. And being responsive is number 6. So number 6 in building a safety culture is treat every reported concern as a priority. So that means dropping everything to fix it. And I love to have timelines. So when I first go into a facility, what I like to do is track how long it takes from the time a hazard was reported to the time that it was fixed. And I understand that some hazards can get fixed relatively quickly, like immediately or within that same day. And that some hazards require I have to hire a contractor or you have to order parts and could take a week, right? So I understand that. And there's steps to take in that process, and that's a whole nother podcast. But I track that, and then I set a goal for the company. And I go, okay, you're sitting right now at 30 days to fix an employee reported hazard on average. Let's get that down to 15 days. Right? And then we put steps in place to get it down to 15 days. And then we keep tightening that goal. So maybe from 15 days, it goes to 12, and from 12, it goes to 9. And eventually what I like to see is a 24 to 72 hours. So it was like 72 hours if contractors had to be called or parts had to be ordered, but 24 hours for all other. So you can do that with your company. So you don't have to go from like, oh, wow, it's taking us 90 days to close an employee reported hazard to 24 hours overnight, but you can set these goals and work on them slowly to improve. And usually you get there. People will put processes in place to get there. It's never been seen as a priority before. And that's why number 6 is treat every reported concern as a priority. The minute it's a priority, everybody would fix it. If our maintenance department had seen that little toaster machine issue was a priority, the way they saw it was like, well, you could just unplug it. The interlock's not working, just unplug it. But that isn't what happened. It didn't get unplugged and someone's fingers got ate. So that's why you have to drop everything and prioritize it. All right, number 7 is feedback on concerns. So when an employee tells you that something is wrong, you have to go back to them and tell them how you fixed it. And there's different ways that you can do that, but this feedback loop is so important because they have a vision of how that hazard should be fixed. And your vision can be totally different because your vision is based on budget and company priorities and things like that. It's not that your vision is wrong or their vision is wrong. They're just different. So you have to report back to that employee and say, hey, you reported this and this is how we fixed it. And I love what Disney does, actually. So Disney puts out this book. I don't know if they still do it. They showed it to me. This was maybe like 7 years ago, where they were putting out this book every quarter. And it said, you said this and we did that. And it was done with pictures. You said this and then we did this to fix it. And then it would show a picture. And it is just page after page. I actually have one still. Page after page of reported hazards and what the company did to fix it. Obviously, they didn't do all of them. They would probably pick and choose the good ones because you can't, to create a book over 3 months of all reported hazards on a Disney property. I mean, you're talking, that's like the size of a town. I mean, their safety program is basically like managing a town. It's pretty incredible. But I love that idea. And you can do this in your newsletter. You could, like every week, if you do a weekly newsletter or a monthly newsletter, pick and choose a couple of the hazards that maybe were reported anonymously and say, hey, you said this, we did this. You could do it on a break room monitor. So I did that for a while too. So I had a break room monitor that would play a PowerPoint presentation on repeat. And then I would just update the PowerPoint presentation every week. And in it, we would put pictures. You said this, we did this, that type of thing. You could do a message board. So going back to where you have employees write the hazard on a whiteboard, you can actually respond on the whiteboard how you fixed it. What I really like is not just responding to that one employee that reported it, but responding to everybody, because that really builds culture. It shows like you care. And just because this one employee reported a hazard, like I've had a hazard being the water fountain wasn't working in the break room. Not really a hazard, but it does pertain to employee morale, which could then create culture issues, which could then result in injuries. So they had a problem with the water fountain in the break room. This was only one employee reported it out of 200. So that looks like it's not a priority, but we prioritized it. We fixed it right away. That went over so well with everybody. So we actually put out there that, hey, we had an employee report this and we responded within 72 hours to fix it. That builds culture, because a lot of people won't report stuff, but they know it's a hazard. But if they see, well, somebody else did it, maybe the next one I'll then do. All right, number 8. You have to give your employees stop work authority. That means that if they feel uncomfortable, unsafe, they don't feel like they're properly trained, they have the right to stop work and say, hey, I'm not doing this task until I'm properly trained and I feel safe and comfortable and I have what I need to do the job. You have to give them that right. But what's funny about this is that most facilities assume that this is already known within their facility. That, of course, we want employees to speak up and not work unsafely. But employees don't know that. So you have to make sure you're communicating this stop work authority, that you are explicitly telling them that they have this authority. And secondly, any time that they should have used that authority, you need to mention it. So let's say that a supervisor comes up to an employee and watches their work and says, hey, have you ever done this job before? Or did you have the right training to do this job? And the employee says, no, not really, but I'm figuring it out and everything is okay. The supervisor should say, look, this is a time when you should have used your stop work authority. You should have come to me and said, hey, I have to do this new task and I don't feel safe doing it, or I've never done it before and I'm not trained. I need help. So when it is recognized that stop work should have been used, you need to bring that up, because then it shows not only like they have that authority, but that you as the management team expect them to use it. And then if they get into that habit, then what will happen is that before they do any task, they'll start thinking about the safety of it, which then changes mindset and changes culture. And it's just freaking amazing. All right. Number 9, have a very strong focus on housekeeping at your facility. Do not allow poor housekeeping. Don't allow debris on the ground. Don't allow a pile up of materials and trash and things like that. I went into this facility one time and I swear it was being run by hoarders. They literally were hoarding everything. Every corner of everything was just a pile of junk from old projects. And I understand boneyards, right? I totally get it. Like, you might need it in the future. I actually had one company where their boneyard, I like to call it a boneyard because the stuff you're not using anymore, that they would then take it and eventually sell it and use it for employee events. So that's awesome. But they should have a process and a place for the storage of these things. It shouldn't just be shove everything everywhere. I mean, have you ever seen like underneath people's desks where they just have so much junk piled underneath there? All of this goes back to the broken window theory episode last week. That cleanliness does count. And when you have an environment of disorder, which is what uncleanliness is, it is going to result in more disorder, which would eventually cause injuries and accidents. So make housekeeping a priority. If you need to, Six Sigma the crap out of that. I mean, and if you don't know what Six Sigma is, start looking into it. It's an amazing process to make sure everything gets put back in its right place and everything is neat and orderly. Or you can Marie Kondo it. I don't care. Just cleanliness has got to be important. Orderliness. It just changes the culture in your facility so much. It probably could be like number 1 or 2 on this list. That's how important it is. All right. And our last one, include employees on policy decisions that will affect their work or their environment. Now, this is tricky and this is hard, and this is why it's the last one, because this is the one that most people have trouble doing because they don't want to take the time to do it. So what it means is that when you're changing a process or you're putting in a new policy or procedure or anything like that, you want to get the feedback from the employees. When you do this, they feel more connected to the organization, and then when the policy is released, they actually follow it better. And then it gives them an understanding that you trust their insight, that you actually agree with their opinion and understand that the policies that the management team is putting together affect the workers. So make sure that you include them in that decision. All right, so those are my top 10 building safety culture tips. Let's review them quickly. Number 1, the expectation to work safely is set on day 1. Number 2, safety is not a separate entity, but it's entwined with all the other departments' SOPs. Number 3, safety is everyone's responsibility, and that has to come from the top. That message comes from the top. Number 4, safety is discussed before every new or non-routine task and regularly for routine tasks. Number 5, there are multiple ways to report a safety concern. Number 6, you treat every one of those concerns as a priority. And number 7, you give feedback to the employees on all the concerns that were reported. Number 8, employees have to explicitly be told that they have stop work authority and that they're encouraged to use it. Number 9, have a strong focus on housekeeping. And number 10, include employees on policy decisions that will affect their work or their environment. There you go, my friends. I hope that these 10 tips help you build safety culture. If you like this and you're like, hey, I'm all into that management commitment, I need to work on it, I love the idea of safety culture, and you want more, make sure that you are on my email list, because I'm always sharing about safety culture and how to create it and how to get better management commitment. And the best way to get on my mailing list is by going to asksafetygeek.com/scorecard. And on top of that, you'll get a really cool scorecard to help you score your safety program. So I'll give you something valuable, and I'll make sure that in the future you'll hear about a lot more safety goodness. Alrighty, my friends, until next time, you have a good week, and I will chat with you later. Bye-bye. You know what? I have a hunch that you have a BSF, a best safety friend, who would love to know about this show. Well, don't keep it to yourself. Sharing is caring. Stop what you're doing right now and forward this show to them. They will thank you. And don't forget, you can check out the show notes and links for this week's show at www.asksafetygeek.com. Chat with you next week. Bye.